What's cracking, everybody? Welcome back to the new channel with the new video. Communism in America. What is communism in America? I want to hear in the comment sections what you guys in the comment section, like if I have multiple, right? In the comment section, I want to hear what you think communism in America is, what it could be, and also what you have to say. What do you think? What do you feel about what I say today? So, I'm not a youngster. I'm 50 years old. I've lived a pretty eventful, somewhat eventful life. Um, I was born into poverty and criminality. I was born into an extremely violent home where I was beaten on an almost daily basis. My parents, my mother was beaten a lot. My parents grew up. My mom in the Los Angeles County foster care system. My dad had an extremely rough life. Neither one of them had a parental figure to pattern their own parenting after. Being born into the type of family I was born into, you know, let's just say this. I went from that, obviously a lot of childhood trauma, which led me to create a belief system within my mind where being a gang member was the option, the cure all for all the wrongs, all the bad in my life. Of course, it was a horrible decision. And from the age of 13 to 43, I was probably on the streets 15, maybe 18 months in that 30-year period. And 24 years and about 2 weeks of that was one stint in prison. And that was due to a murder conviction. 1993, I was arrested for murder after having just gotten out. I had been out 5 months from doing state time in the California Youth Authority, California's juvenile prison system. I was out 5 months, and then I made the horrible decision to kill someone that I could have let go home. And I was convicted that was in 1993. I was arrested for it. In 1994, I was convicted of second-degree murder, sentenced to 20 years to life. And I did 24 years and 2 weeks. Only got out because of a Senate bill. Else I would have died in there. And I had made it okay in my mind. That's what the program was. Now, my perception, my beliefs are based on my own life experiences. So when I ask you, when I ask the viewer, when I ask you who sees this video, what is communism in America? We have people here that would love to see this country become a communist state. And I've seen them on TikTok. I've seen them on YouTube. And, to me, it seems like it's like a fad. It's like a in thing to do. And at a certain point in people's lives, a certain type of people, I don't know. But see, I've never interacted with them. So when I speak, I want to speak off of life experiences, and on my other channels, especially the big channel. So this is my third channel. This channel is going to be a smorgasbord. This is a channel where there's going to be different things going on at different times. But I just want to talk about, okay, let me get back to, people have often said, why is it that, you compare everything to prison? And I try to explain to them, the vast majority of my life, I was incarcerated in some form or fashion due to my poor decision making. Let me make that clear. And so, as human beings do, when you run into a situation, whatever the situation is, when you're in that situation, right? You try to compare something in your past that was similar to that situation. How did you cope with it? How did you deal with it? How did you address it based on past experiences? So because my life, the vast majority of my life, I was in prison, I don't have street memories. When I'm looking at something, I don't have a memory from the streets that I can find my way with, or at least have a starting point. Like, oh yeah, you know what? I ran across it. I had this happen before. This is what I did last time. Worked perfect. Or you know what? This is what I did last time, but I made a mistake here or there, right? So when I do that, it goes back to prison. And so I want to tell a story, or at least give you guys a glimpse at how I feel those that are in America who wish that this was a communist country, a communist nation, who have this whimsical, fantastical idea of how great it would be if we were communists and everybody would be equal. And all. I'd like to give a story of this while incarcerated. So while I was incarcerated, it took a lot of years for me to grow up in prison. So I was in there, stabbing people, hurting people. I went to Pelican Bay SHU, which was for a long time definitely California's worst prison. It was built to break people mentally, built to break very strong men mentally. And in a lot of cases, it did drive people insane. While there, that's when I would run across those that wanted to be communists. And it always cracked me up, right? And I don't want to say which groups and which factions it was, but I there was two specific groups where I heard it the most, right? And honestly, I felt every one of them that I met, I felt they were a crybaby. Honestly did. They were mad at America because they were mad at America because America had the audacity to enforce the laws that we as criminals knew were in place and we chose to disregard. How dare America enforce laws that we disregard, right? Imagine thinking like that. Myself, on the other hand, I knew what the laws were, and I knew I'm going to break them. When I was in that lifestyle, I am going to break. Fuck those laws. They don't apply to me. I do whatever the hell I want. And when they bust me, when they sentence me, and they send me off to prison, I will do that time. Let's go. So when I would run across these convict communists, it was always hilarious to me. And there were times where I would engage on the tier with them, of course, very respectfully. That's one thing. You have to engage other men respectfully. Conversations are always respectful in there. Can they get heated? They can. But you never, ever engage someone that can't handle it unless you're prepared to kill or die for that frivolous conversation. So I remember these convict communists were on the tier and calling each other comrade. And no, they weren't white. Neither one. And they were both different nationalities. And they were comrade this and comrade that. And I was laughing. And so I said, hey, Holmes, excuse me on the tier. are you guys really like serious about communism in this nation, in this country? And they were like, yeah. And they went on to, um, I felt cry, right? Wah, wah, wah. It's pretty much what I heard. I had to decipher it, work my way through it. And so I asked them, like, let me ask you a question. I didn't want to know no details or nothing, right? But you were convicted for murder, right? Like, yeah. And the other one, and you too, right? Yeah. And I said, well, shoot, in a communist country, they just kill you if you're a murderer, right? Like, you're sitting right now in your cell, right here next to me, and you have blankets. It's just you and one other person in your cell. We're gonna get fed 3 times a day. It's not 3 hots in a cot. That saying's a lie, at least in California. But we do get 3 meals: 2 coldish, maybe lukewarm, and 1 that's a lunch. It's never a hot meal, right? And so I was like, you're gonna get 3 meals. You get a shower every other day. You get yard every day. You have your TV in your cell. Your cellie has his. We have cable. We have ESPN and BET. And you want this to be a communist nation? Like, really, like, you as a convicted killer wish that this country would enforce their policies here, and they would have just killed you the day you were found guilty. Like, China does that. And let's say changed it. If you were found guilty of murder, they just kill you the same day you're found guilty. I don't know if they're still doing it, but they were. In a communist country, you and your family can be scooped up, placed in jail, and they'll get you when they get you. Maybe it takes a year. Maybe it takes 3. And that's what you want? And they would, and I was like, no, but think about what you're saying. Like, I think you're mad at this country for enforcing the laws you chose to break. So that's the perspective that I have when I see, and I just brought this up because I saw it again recently. These people they were probably at a university, everybody at the university. And they had like a petition. I don't know what it was. They had a table and dressed nice, and they were for communism, and a guy just simply a guy that fled a communist country. See that I was banging on the table with my finger. A guy that was born and fled a communist country asked them, what do you see that's so great about communism, and why don't you go where it already is? Imagine if somehow, some way, there was a communist party in the United States that got elected, and they started trying to overhaul this whole system in America. Do those that have communist beliefs, do you believe that it would just immediately turn into the utopia that is in your mind? There would be no growing pains. But it's a trip, because every time I see these people in America that are so pampered, waving their little papers how they want to be communists, and then they get questioned by someone who fled a communist country, they always just pack up and leave. They don't want to have that conversation. Me being 50 years old, I remember the Soviet Union. I remember the USSR. I remember, I'm going to be completely honest, when I was in the California Youth Authority, the California juvenile prison system, and I had my subscription to Playboy magazine. I would get my new Playboy every month. And I always remembered whenever they would have someone from the Soviet Union, someone from Russia that was a playmate, and they would have the questions and stuff. And it always struck me that they all said the same thing about our grocery stores. That when they first came to America and they went into the grocery store, they cried when they saw the abundance that we had. You remember back then, China and Cuba and the Soviet Union, they like if your father was a plumber, you were a plumber, and your son was going to be a plumber, his son and his son and his son and his son and his, you know what I mean? Like they all wore the same drab clothing, and this was the great utopia that these people here, these youngsters that don't remember those eras, that weren't raised in that era to see how things were. China was smart. China created a hybrid, right? They're communist. And they created this hybrid economy that made it sustainable. The Soviet Union was broken because of the war in Afghanistan. And, the United States was just funneling money and weaponry and training into Afghanistan to drain them. And it's like, people in this country that believe in this whole idea that, the United States is so rich. Why can't we give everyone free healthcare? What the fuck? What do you mean? Like they go, well, Canada does it. Canada's entire country's population is less than California. Of course they should be able to afford that. But when you're talking about nearly 400 million people in a country and you want to give them all free medical care, what does that do to the doctors? The best doctors will flee. Not flee, but the best doctors would leave the United States. Capitalism creates competition. And the best at their field get paid the most. And that's incentive to be better, create better. Communism is a competition killer. There's going to be people, you have no idea what you're talking about. Okay, that's fine. And then that's where you say, I'm not interested in this channel. You hit the 3 dots that say not interested, boom, and then you don't see me anymore. But I know what I believe. I may get into how I became a conservative. Someone who grew up in the poverty that I grew up with, the criminality, the desperation. I should have been that poster child of the Democratic Party. On my big channel last night, we had a great live, Gunner and I, and one of our supporters, who was a diehard liberal, he and I had, an exchange, and maybe I have that conversation here too. See, again, I base my belief system off of my life experiences. I don't base my belief system off of a soundbite that a newscaster was paid to read, that was written by someone else, more than likely. I need more than that 2-minute, 3-minute soundbite that is already designed in a way to make you believe a certain way. I don't care what anybody's political beliefs are. I think that we are at a point in this country where it is extremely, extremely important that people stop listening to what other people are saying and look at what's going on in their families, in their communities, in their county, in their city, in their state, and the nation. Period. Don't listen to me. Don't take my word for it. Don't take Don Lemon's word. Please don't. Don't take Tucker Carlson. Don't take anyone's word as gold. Let whoever you listen to be a starting point. With an open mind, look at the counterpoint. Stuff is going downhill fast, man. It's my video for today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Everybody, please be safe, be smart, and tell the ones you love that you love them. I'm out of here.